Okay, this is the kernel version and Flavours discussion for the Ubuntu kernel. Focus really here is to discuss where we think we're going to be for the base kernel version for the nasty cycle, and to both review the current Flavours we're producing, whether they're still relevant, look at the ports, which ports we're covering, whether there's changing at all, and to look at some proposals for new Flavours to cover new use cases. We're also going to wonder what just happened. Let's not press that button again.
We gotta get you off Windows, man.
Yeah, I should have run that.
It's always the same.
So annoying.
It says it's turned on and everything. It just isn't. That's just true.
We're surprised.
Oh, yeah, I'll let you borrow my Apple.
Yeah, bring it up. Oh, that's good, right?
We're all there.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
What are you doing? Stop it. Right. Okay. We're also going to talk about which branches we're going to pull in or push out of the master branch, because some of the stuff we found in the previous cycle gave us some trouble, particularly OMAP 3, and some peripheral talk about the meta package. So I think first primary thing we wanted to talk to anyway was about how we choose the flavor. We usually, for the distro kernel, we really have two different ways of choosing. For an LTS release, we're very conservative. If you look back to the last LTS, we stayed on 32, even though 33 had been released at the time of our kernel freeze. For non-LTS, and this is obviously a non-LTS, we're much more aggressive. We usually like to take the most recently released kernel at the time we get to kernel freeze. If we look at the dates, 2636 popped out around October 20th. We've been told that the merge window should close on Monday. So based on an 8 RC release, that would bring us just before Christmas, which is pretty normal for an MSC usually releases just before Christmas if he's got one that's going on near Christmas. So we're hoping that that 2637 should release around then. Based on a long merge window for Christmas, and again an 8-week cycle, I'm expecting that 38 should be available from the 7th to the 21st, somewhere in that range of March. As we have a kernel freeze date of April 14th this cycle, that gives us a very strong probability that 2638 should be available in time for our release. Generally speaking, we make the final decision actually in just after Christmas, because the dates are much more obvious then. So there's a strong probability we will be on 2638 for now.
Do we need to revisit that decision? Do you think we should revisit that decision in like January or February and decide whether it's still on track?
You just said that.
Oh, sorry.
Right, that's exactly it. Generally speaking, we make a prediction now. Pretty much we've been right, I think, for most of the last 4 or 5. But generally speaking, we don't know until probably until the merge window opens for the release we're predicting, whether it's going to hit.
So one of the advantages of 2638 for Lunaro is that it gives us another month and a half, about 6 weeks, to get some of our consolidation code into mainline. And so if we go with 2638, we can go back to our partners and say, we've got 6 weeks to get at least some of the basic drivers.
And I think that fits with what we would like to do as a distro, because, as I say, for non-LTS, we want to be as aggressive as we can get away with without being outrageous. And we've even been known to release an RC very late RC publicity, if absolutely necessary, with a view to SOUing before release.
We get the same benefits for DRM drivers and things like that.
Right.
Like relatively different.
So as we had that issue with the LTS, where we had to pull back huge globs of code because we were on an old code. We wanted to avoid that as much as possible. So it sounds like 38 is good for Monaro. It's certainly what I think what we would like to be if it's all possible.
It gives us one more opportunity to push stuff.
Yeah, of course. Merge windows are always.
So we're going to walk through kernel versions. Do we expect all patch sets to be ported every time to all the kernel versions, or are there some which will be missing for part of the cycle and only land on 2638?
Patch sets for.
Linaro patch sets. Wait, that's happening in Linaro or elsewhere?
Well,
The
what's
question
good to
is-
Linaro actually is,
Right, so I just don't really understand the question.
so right now we don't have 2638, right?
Of course.
And it will come up at some point in the cycle. And what we're saying is we're going to tie it to 2638 in the end. So people are going to work on some patch sets which will tie into 638, so they're going to be taking their time. Do we know of any patch set which will only be available into 638? Or do we expect all patch sets or functionalities to be developed onto 636 and move to 37 and 38?
Well, from a distro point of view, I don't think we're particularly waiting for any functionality.
Okay, well, I was thinking things like ABAMOR, next stuff, or AUFS, or things like that. Or
Sorry.
Pharma is already in.
ABAMOR is emergent stream, but I suppose there are new developments going on.
There's stuff going in 38 would be the next branch that goes.
So we do have the advantage of having direct access to the upstream, particularly for Ahamon, to encourage him to give us patches to the right version.
We're currently targeting 38 for the next set.
So I didn't know that.
We're currently targeting 38 for the next set, but the 37 merge window is closed already, and that
Right.
anything that's not in 37 merge right now is 38 for the
So, careful your screensaver. I was wondering whether you actually intend to merge them in Ubuntu in 37 despite that.
Yes, I think we're going to push into 37 kernel for testing as we run through the alpha betas. That just makes sense.
Right.
And presumably all of the Ubuntu sauce fits that same model where we have good relationships and we can try to keep things
Right. So
in real time ported to whatever kernel we have shipping.
Right, so the standard development model for our kernel is we do pick up our entire delta and move it forward, usually on an RC by RC basis. So we already have 2636 base kernels right now. We have, obviously as 37 RC1 isn't out, we don't yet have that, but I'm actually running a kernel right now that is somewhere in that merge window. So we're already pulling our stuff forward. Yes, we have trouble with things like AUFS, though I just received some patches for that. And so we will be trying to get that to work on 36 and rolling it forward to 37 as we go forward. But we have, I don't think we're particularly waiting for any specific functionality coming from us for this cycle.
Perhaps another way to ask the thing I can care about is what kind of large patch sets can we expect to be on top of the Ubuntu kernel for each of these versions? Do we expect any conflicts and stuff like that? So as far as I know, there's still some more patches, UFS.
UFS is probably the biggest one we're carrying right now. That we are looking at overlay FS right now.
Is it some kind of union as well?
It's
Similar functionality.
it's the sort of third attempt. VFS union mounts which was officially the right way to do it, has turned out to be enormous and very intrusive and changes user space semantics, which causes a lot of problems for depackage, for example. So somebody has come up with another version called overlay FS, which is very small, very easy to understand, and in my testing does more than I ever could get VFS union mounts to do. Does still have bugs, does still fail, so it's not ready. So I mean, from a union mounts perspective, I'm pursuing both overlay FS and pursuing getting union mounts AUFS and overlay FS. So I'm predicting we will end up carrying AUFS still, and hopefully that will be working. It does seem to be possible to get it working. Other than that, I don't think most of the things we carry are small drivers, small modifications, a few performance things that if they go away aren't the end of the world, so I'm not expecting to lose anything. I guess the good thing, it sounds like the ARM branches are targeting 38, which is a significant bonus for stable, if that's what you're telling me.
We're saying the narrow targets.
So now I think we'll probably continue moving, tracking the latest kernel all the time. And because, as you said, 3700 is closed, our developments will probably be tied at 38, but despite that, we want to provide 36 kernel, 37 kernel.
Sure. And we presumably those will continue to come throughout the cycle as you and we move forward, incrementally.
Nicola, what are your thoughts on that?
I think we'll just follow the Lotus kernel with a stable range for each release, like we did in the last cycle.
So I mean, it's good news for us because that means that a good portion of the ARM support is very close to our targeted release version. Because we had to significant version skew for particularly from Arabic.
We might add a lot of new flavors.
Okay, and what
And I
versions
don't
they
know where which kernel would come from or which flavors.
we need to know quite soon because it affects foundations as much as anything else in X. Because we need to understand how wide the skew window is from the lowest version to the highest version.
But I can't say anything.
Well,
Sorry.
so we will do a lot of enablement work this cycle
Yeah.
in the narrow. And the platforms that we will work on are ST Ericsson, Fuscale, Samsung, and TI. I'll probably work on Map 3 and Map 4 for the TI side as well. Now, we're working on trunk, an enablement for trunk. And that means that it is possible that by the end of the cycle, it won't be fully functional. So it could be, I'm not saying that's what we want to get to, but it could be that we get to the end of the cycle and a trunk-based enablement branch for one of these platforms doesn't run Ubuntu.
Well, for the Lenora kernels, that's probably acceptable. It's more we have to make sure that we understand the skew of the Ubuntu kernel, so that when Oliver is introducing kernels, it may be that the Lenora enablement kernel is not yet in a state where it can support whatever platform he needs to support.
That's right.
And we need to get some older vendor kernel with all kinds of who knows what patches just stuck in the archive so that that hardware works.
Yes, exactly.
So
So
do we have on the north side any PSP or sorry, any LAN team targeting non-38?
all the language teams will target trunk. That is the reality of it. Now, I think we should shelve this conversation. I just wanted to mention that this is going to happen there, and at least those are the flavors that you should think about. Map 3 or Map 4, UA500s, MX51, possibly something else from Freescale as well, and a Samsung, a recent Samsung port as well. So that's what we're looking at the moment.
Can we carry 3 and 4 in a single
No, we
binary?
can't.
That is, well, that's also the objective.
Map 4 will very likely stay in the community sense for
Right. I don't think we
because
should.
we get a special comment from TI directly, which you guys just package up.
When will we know what version that's going to be?
They know that they wait for your decision which version it has to be, and then they will try to follow part to that.
So they are going to attempt to
It
hit
will
our
at least be 37, I
You've already pulled OMAP 3 out of NAT.
Yeah, right.
So the only thing I'm
OMAP
building
3 is something I don't care about. I would like to, it's listed there. I would like to switch.
So basically, if you use the trunk, you will have both for support in the same binary. But you don't have many of the features. I clearly doubt that you will get enough for completely out of the trunk by this time necessarily. So for Linaro, you will get about 3 or 4 in the same binary. For Ubuntu, it's not going to be.
So what we'll do is in Ubuntu we'll have TI's kernel and we'll have a Lenora kernel which people can play with, but isn't guaranteed to support all the features either of the Ubuntu rootfs or of the individual platforms that have that chipset.
Yep.
So I guess the question is how close, how likely is that to be, say we go for 38, is that something you can hit, or is it more likely to be hitting 37?
Well, we can, today we are 35, we can target 50. We are going to target 50, we want to target.
Well, it's just that if 38 only comes out 3 weeks before we freeze, that doesn't give you very long to catch up.
Well, I guess
This is assuming you will follow the RCs, right?
Yeah, I'm assuming that you're going to follow Trump as Trump is doing, right?
Well, that's good.
We will try to do better what we do. I guess we get different flavor for Nightfall, so I mean, it's not like after the last 3 years. Yeah. It's less restricted than you say for Nightfall. Like,
I think it worked quite well.
Yeah,
But it was a bit later than
it was still new last time.
I think the greater danger that is being raised is that Oliver says he can't currently say what kernels will be available, and there may be other flavors for which the version number is not currently known or can be known in this session.
Right.
Right. And so really, the takeaway I need to give you is that we need to know the spread as soon as possible, because it affects other teams, not just the kernel team. In fact, it affects them far more than it affects us. Because we can put anything in a kernel package, but X won't like it.
Yeah.
Or
And it's not just some of the core bits. It extends all the way out of tools that depend on this sort of thing. And we need to make sure we make big public announcements if we aren't supporting some piece or we are changing some piece.
And one thing I want to make very, very sure is that we only have topic branches for this.
Yeah, I'm
Nothing in
pulled
there.
out completely.
so we've pulled OMAP 3 out, and actually currently there's no OMAP 3 kernel at all.
Yeah, that's
We need
even
to
a
figure
question
out
if we
where that's
still
coming
need
from.
versatile or not. We had a session about switching to over to something else. And if we would do that like OMAP or
What was the
like,
conclusion? Did we?
I don't think we had a final conclusion yet, but two options came up that we build a special kernel and a special kernel that is for a non-existing network. So you can even emulate PCI buses and stuff. And the other option was to put in the Indian name for instead of using currently used JIN port.
We'll also do kernel work this cycle around soon.
I would like to base on the hours work.
So, who's taking the decision?
I think we could sit down together again and see who's doing maintenance, because will be maintenance work that has to happen in
No,
let's discuss that after the comment.
Well, I would like to have an action.
Screensaver.
Kernel flavors.
Move your mouse.
It's more matter of maintenance.
Oh, your password is ...
My password.
Yeah, we know it.
My
all.
screensaver password has been in IRC often enough. There's people here that probably know what it is.
Do we want an action to check with whoever's using, deciding on the QEMU support in Ubuntu to go back to the team and kill that flavor?
Yeah, or
put
put
an
it
action.
into that place.
Put an action.
Can we have an action for that? We also need to, Oliver, we need to get together and talk about, in broad terms, how many flavors there really are going to be and how
Yeah,
they're
I
going to be
can't tell you
supported.
yet.
I don't know,
Depends on how.
but you might be able to tell us more out of the street.
Yeah. even there, I can't tell you much.
Fair enough.
Because it's not finalized.
It also depends on us, so we should also give you some input there. And Scott in particular should give you some guarantees of what he can and what he can't. So tell me.
So
this
we
is-
should have that discussion later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're currently mostly actually here talking about the flavour source disposition, which we were going to talk about later. But one thing that's come out of that is we dropped OMAP 3. We've dropped it in toto right now.
Right.
So you said you don't care about it. Does that mean dropping it completely?
No, I care about having images for it, but I'm fine to base them on the Linaro kernel if the Linaro kernel doesn't cut out functionality.
So when will we find that?
And hearing that you probably will do OMAP 3, OMAP 4 binary, it sounds a bit scary. I'm not sure how one
OMAP 3 won't have a problem
With what you
mainline.
yeah.
OMAP 4 is very
Yeah.
minimal to me.
Yeah, okay. I don't care about OMAP 4 and Linaro.
So we've reached an action there to follow up on the OMAP 3, where that's going to come from, because potentially we could end up with another flavour and a branch, or not, depending on the outcome of your discussion, but we need to be aware of
I
that.
think we run our kernels, it shouldn't be a problem.
So
That's
let's
not-
So
let's
let's
have an action
have
item.
some precautions to that. If we want to switch Ubuntu images to the Grenal kernels, then we need to make sure that we enforce Ubuntu conflicts, for instance, on Grenal kernel.
Sure.
Right, so that's what I'm saying, it's not a done deal, we need,
Yeah.
I mean, basically Oliver needs to buy into using your kernel.
Right,
Yeah,
that's
I mean, that
absolutely.
works for us as a team, because that's one less kernel for us to support,
I
one
would,
less
I
branch.
would actually like to do that for any flavor we add, or if it's possible.
If
But
it's rare.
But it always depends on the company.
Omar was a branch. Omar 3 was a branch.
No, it
No,
wasn't. No,
but
it
Oliver
wasn't
very
later,
specifically
that was
wants-
painful.
But Oliver wants it to be a branch if it's not going to be Linaro.
Right.
So it affects us, and so we just need to follow up on that, and I think we
I think
can't
that one,
answer that here.
I
so
think
we
that
should
one,
move.
yeah, I think that one we can make a commitment to supporting. I don't think it's a big deal for the NR. I think you should, it's one less thing for you to worry about, so I'd rather us do that. So we should probably put down an action to record the actual commitment from the NR on this.
Well,
Or what form it's going to take, or what the mechanics of doing this are.
yes, so my understanding is that I like Ani's proposal that Oliver needs to buy into our kernel. I mean, we are not maintaining Ubuntu images.
Sure.
We're providing a Nomad 3 kernel in Ubuntu, which is up for grab for the Ubuntu team.
Sure.
We're happy if they take it.
Yeah.
But we're not going to test Ubuntu images. And
No.
So it's,
I don't expect that.
Yeah. so there might be some action.
Ubuntu, like is being very weak.
Yes.
Well, let's have an action.
That's the give and take.
Let's have an action item and let's move forward with this.
Thank you.
I think we've already got the action
Yeah.
for that discussion to happen, and for us to find out what the answer is. So that's good.
Do we want to split the flavor build so that to first, I think there's a list of Ubuntu ARM flavors which we probably know of already. Like we know that it's made of 4 branch flavor. There's going to be probably, I'm understanding, a Dove and IMX 51 flavor. I'm not sure for Ubuntu.
I'm not sure that will be there.
But anyway,
It is unknown. He has already said he can't say. He's saying he's not sure. Let's just assume there will be some
There's-
variety of flavors we don't know
yeah.
about.
Say it's 5 flavors.
Yeah, my question is, do we want to break them up in multiple source packages just by
There's a
Ubuntu?
completely separate
Yes.
session on that
Okay.
Really?
next hour.
Okay, good.
Steve invited me to it anyway. There's a kernel source package
Yeah.
for Linaro thing, which obviously if you're going to go a different way, we probably want to do the same way,
Yes,
or not.
Yeah.
Or,
But
yeah,
yeah,
so
we'll
I
figure that
want
out.
to separate from the master branch, so
Uh,
all the comments do not get in your way.
Right,
With
so-
R36 and to be flexible with common changes in the arms.
So I think that one we should take to that meeting.
Okay.
Maybe you
Linux
guys-
and our packaging one.
It was something like that,
Yeah.
yeah. And I
Yes,
know I'm
Steve-
going,
Steve
I think
Feigen's
Tim's going as well. So there should be good representation for our side in that session. Okay, so we'll leave that one. So I think that's all the ARM stuff. Basically, you're saying is we're going to have a lot and it's going to be frightening for me.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good.
Frightening is the word we're using. Okay, so current distro flavors. One of the things we want to do is go over the flavors and make sure the flavors are doing what we want. We've already got a possibility that the versatile flavor may not be the flavor that's going forward, so we can ignore that one. We've been carrying OMAT 3. It sounds like we're going to still need to.
The discussion was going to happen.
Yeah.
Maybe it could probably drop.
There's a question mark there.
In terms of, I guess it becomes more complicated in the sense that there will be an Ubuntu distro requirement for a kernel of that flavor, regardless of its where it comes from.
Exactly.
For the main x86 architectures, we're currently carrying generic, which is supposed to be small desktops. As for 64-bit, a server, sort of a vanilla server kernel. And we obviously carry virtual kernels for both. Is there any other kernels we need at this time for cloud or anything like that? I don't think there is. I think those are probably pretty good. Yes?
I have
No, you
kernel.
can't have it. Sorry. Yes?
No, you've already answered the question, and I'll bring it back when we get to the next item. Go forward.
Can I drop PA?
PAE.
No.
No.
Unfortunately, PAEs, there is still.
Why do you want to get rid of it?
Because I have 4
Why
gigabyte.
do you want to get rid of it? Because it's
It's more work for us, and it's P's for MIPS.
Mixed with more memory?
Website don't want us to run 64-bit.
It's outdated. It's outdated.
You may not have a 64-bit processor when you have VA.
Unfortunately, there is a family of processors that were delivered with more than 4 gigs of RAM that don't support 64 bits, which is very annoying.
Who cares about those cavemen anyway?
It depends whether it can be more than 2 gigs, depending how the physical CPU puts the third and fourth gigs.
Should we just drop OMAP because you agreed in the...
Well, we have a requirement at a distro level to have an OMAP kernel. Which one is to be discussed?
Right.
Yeah, there's a requirement
For
to
a kernel.
consume it. Where it comes from is a discussion that's still ongoing.
Yeah.
Right, we've got 3 power up. Ooh, that's clever. We've got three power ports currently. Do we actually know if we need all 3?
I believe that we can run Power SMP on single core machines and single processor machines now, so I think we only need 2 of those.
Yeah, can we add an action on and just check it out?
Yeah,
Yeah, because I'm thinking, I was going to say the same thing, and I think that we should investigate whether we can drop this 32-bit no discipline.
Yeah.
So that's good, okay, so that's the main flavors. I don't think there's much to change there.
If we do that, we're going to change the names and just drop the SMP totally, or?
I'd like to. That would make it easier to explain.
That would be fine, I mean, it adds transitional passage explainers.
Yeah, with regards to the RML flavors. Yeah, with regard to the RML flavors, we'd be very interested in having the figure support out of the box to the next version. So we probably need a new flavor for that.
Is it very special?
Well, it's not IMX.
Yeah, but I didn't say the flavor there. It's the...
So I guess what the request is, if I may put that in the frame.
One at a time, please. I can't keep up.
If I may put that request in the frame of this document, I think what the request that Marcos has is to add in the ports list an RML, if you get, or RML IMX51 as a distro requirement. Which tree it comes from is to be discussed, but presumably either Marcos can produce a tree or Lenara can produce a tree or somebody can produce a tree that works.
That sort of shake out from Oliver's conversation. That's one of the things that we know is going to come out.
Okay, so that's one we're expecting to be coming from Oliver's.
Well, you might have a requirement for it, but
Which
Marcos
is a
doesn't.
totally different one.
No, I think you're saying that there's a good discussion where you might have an IMX51 kernel, and we're saying we want one kernel which is IMX51 based and supports FKMX,
Right.
while your kernel won't support it. So I think we need both. I mean, having a discussion about your kernel flavors which you need, and we want to note down that we want an FKMX IMX51 flavor.
So let's just put that in this list and of distro requirements.
How many units exist in the world?
They're in production and in retail and have been for 2 years. Many of us carry laptops that use those chips.
Didn't you sign up for
In
it?
the next hour, we're going to do 25 more units.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Talk to the guy with the bell.
Giving out about 50 units.
He comes bearing gifts.
You don't have any can support more.
Move your mouse, move your mouse.
Move your mouse.
Move your mouse.
Andy. So anyway, as a distro requirement, we're going to want an IMX51 flavor. Let's mark that down and move on.
Yep.
Okay.
Action.
Why don't you have OMAP 4 in the box?
What?
OMAP 4 should be in the box.
It should, you're right.
But OMAP 4 is something that Oliver will take care of right now as part of the later on follow-up and giving the team the list of things to get there.
So we're discussing the
It's just missing, and the reason that's happened is because actually that list is all the ones that are on the master branch, even though one of them's now been torn out. It's an old list, and I've failed to put on the OMAP 4, which should be on there. We had some discussions last cycle after, actually about the generic PE issue. And actually I was talking to Ben said, he commonly installed 64-bit kernels on the 64-bit hardware but ran full users, 32-bit users, because that's more compatible with things like Flash, blah, 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 and you get all the benefits of a bigger kernel.
Right.
I've done some work within our build infrastructure to make this possible, and so the question really is do we want to consider supporting a 64-bit kernel on the
I would use it myself. I think it's worth. on 64-bit. I would use it myself. Check out the 64-bit problems with Flash.
So you think you'd be against it?
Well, they're now shipping another 64-bit version. Why allow for the silly backwarding?
We would like to make this go away once hardware goes away, which will happen soon. So let's not pander to creating a bridge that we have to continue to support an architecture which nobody actually has any hardware that needs. There might be bugs, but let's fix the bugs. That's a user space bug. It shouldn't
Well, besides
require
Flash, what
hardware.
else is there?
There's a ton of stuff, actually.
Yeah.
Well,
The arch will deal with this.
Well, that was the question I did have. I didn't expect you to use to know the answer. Does multi-arch fit? Is the multi-arch stuff actually landing now?
I doubt it. but
Some pieces
that's
have
one.
landed, other pieces haven't. It's not worth saying that the entire solution will be in place on that. That is not a target.
So we'll contract out some of the deep package work. It's already confirmed. It will happen. So
It's a natty time frame thing versus a wider thing. It's happening, but do you want to commit to it, the entirety of the multi-arch spec landing in the natty time frame?
we should. Steve's had it on his plate forever now.
You should commit and you want to commit are two different things.
It's not the same as the kernel team that deal with this.
Yes.
Well, that sounds, I mean, I don't think we really want to support another player. Possibly avoid it, so I think that's an easy decision.
There's no compelling reason for it, and I see drop it.
Right, hence that one's a scratch. Just, I think X through that one for us. Low latency.
Just a note on that, I get 2 or 3 complaints a day from users about why it's not available anymore.
Because
From
they
who
don't
used to
know
use real-time and whatnot.
what the fuck a low latency kernel really is.
I understand that, I'm just adding into the,
Just I mean, the RT
There you
patches
go.
are probably not the right answer, but something that's a low latency kernel is really compelling for embedded spaces. Yeah.
For what, sorry?
Embedded spaces,
So,
embedded, anything other than a
right. So I think that there's 2 things. I mean, somebody added this other than us, so I haven't actually read it. But I don't see us doing RT full stop. That's a huge patch set. It's not on any conjoined alignment. Now, was it Lucid? We did a preamp,
yeah.
which was an attempt at a low latency, and we dropped that for Maverick because community members stepped up to maintain
An
Flavor,
RT kernel.
and then it imploded. So the question is do we want to resurrect a config-only modified low latency kernel? I mean, what was your use case apart from?
There's a lot of, we've had people come up on the OMAP specifically asking for RT patches to existing mainline. Obviously, there's no way how we want to support that ever. But and these are tier 1 OEM type customers with real high volume products that are looking for really low latency Linux kernels. Decisions. One of the things that hold them back from using Linux is their perceived non-real-time issues.
The two guys-
There's a high I/O, a lot of I/O on the device, et cetera, et cetera.
The 2 guys who know the most about this will be at Plumbers next week.
Right.
I don't want to say we should defer the decision, but it would be valuable for us to have a discussion with them next week. to
Yeah.
see what-
I will tell you, it probably happens 3 to 4 times a year. So I work at TI, by the way, just so you know, where people come up to us asking us for RT patches.
So the primary target,
In Linux general, in the kernel general.
the primary target for us as a distro is a general purpose machine, and I don't think it's appropriate for us to focus on a feature like that. And it's largely x86. So the ARM trees can do what they wish.
Okay, I mean,
Yeah, I was actually going to say
Okay.
that. I mean, if you guys care a lot about that, then let Goku know.
right. Well, Google knows of it. I just don't think I usually squash it before it gets to him.
Yeah.
Because there's no way now we can do something like that. But at the same token, the RT patches aren't the right answer. So
Right, okay.
that's the issue overall.
So then, to look at the strict x86 case and the users that are complaining to me all the time.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that side. That's right.
You say they don't know what low latency is. What their complaint is usually that they're getting X runs with Jack. Is there something other that
I
should be?
don't care about the 10 people in the world that are doing that. It's
It's
such a
2
small
or
market
3 a
that they
day.
can find
But it's
community
the same
support
people
for their own kernel.
Always the challenge.
And so the answer is that we should have Alessio upload everything on his own kernel tree into the archive.
As he's been doing.
Okay.
Except that he's imploded.
That's a different issue.
No, it's having somebody else go do that. So it's just having another flavor, and that's can be a supported flavor and just isn't touched by this team. Okay, that solves my problem. So that we can have a low maintenance kernel flavor that is
No problem with that.
it is somewhere else, and that's easy.
Is that a decision we're not going to pick one up?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
But that's not saying there won't be one in Ubuntu. That's
No,
which we don't
absolutely.
know the answer to that question. It's saying that this
Absolutely.
team isn't going to be producing it.
Right, no, absolutely. that's-
Crowdsource it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there is an RT kernel there now. It's just
No,
not
it's
been
not.
updated
We
for a
removed
very
it.
long time.
We removed it.
Oh, you actually removed it.
The RT
So
kernel
you're
was
to
just
blame for them
too
complaining
hard to
to
keep
you.
in sync.
So you're to blame for them complaining to you.
No, because then I would have gotten complaints that it wouldn't boot. So those were my choices.
Fine. Okay, so I actually think we talked about flavor source distribution already. Oh, and there was one other decision which actually I talked about previously. We currently hold a whole extra separate source archive with a different maintainer just for the ports, architectures, and edge packages, which made sense when there was 3 different ports in there. I've actually had a chat with Luke, and he doesn't want to
I'm not
maintain
bothered
it.
either way. I don't mind maintaining it, but if you guys are willing to take it, that's fine.
Yeah,
I'm not bothered either way.
it seems a lot easier for us to just pick it up if that's okay. So I think that's a decision made. So we'll just do that. I think that's all we wanted to cover. Unless anybody had any other questions.
Beautiful session.
Oh,
I think the mechanism for people to be doing community supported kernels like RT things, what would be the right way to attach to the existing kernel processes?
I think we need to use the Git tree of the mainline, the Ubuntu kernels are based, and similar to the way the other flavors are based that you support, I guess.
Yeah.
That would be my thought.
Yeah.
So it would be an attempt to live inside
Well, I think
the Ubuntu kernel?
no. I think what he's suggesting there is we should try and follow the model that we use for the derivative ARM branches, because essentially it's a derivative branch. We want to try and get it based on our kernel, but
And that way the community
Can we
community
formally
still get-
document that process in some way where I can point people at it so that they can go and do that easily?
I actually think probably what we need is a skeleton page that says, if you're thinking of doing this, these are the documents to read, and these are the people to contact.
That would be great, if you can point me at somewhere, because one of the issues that we've had in the past is it's not necessarily clear
What are
how.
community kernels that are totally off inversion?
Right, that would be my
No,
Because I would love to have a kernel in archive for this, which is 2629, and won't be updated by anyone.
Gosh.
Yes.
So the thing that's happened with that in the past, Oliver, especially with the real time, we put something in that had kernel steal. For those patch sets, or for those feature patches that we wanted, that we couldn't get ported to the target older version because we didn't have resources, we didn't support those features. Sometimes that meant it didn't work. Sometimes when we could get enough that could work that would be acceptable, then that's fine. But it's just a package that is more or less buggy, and being
you
old,
just leave it dangling in the universe. That conversion.
being old just makes it more likely to be buggy. But and it doesn't matter where it is in the archive. It matters that we care about what these users who need it, and it's buggy for those users, and we just make big signs. Hey, this has these known bugs. Be aware that if, like with real time, often we would say, oh, if you install this and you have an NVIDIA card, you won't get any graphics. Do you want real time that much? Some people would say yes.
But real time was based on our conversion.
No, it wasn't.
No.
It was several versions off.
Yeah, it's always several versions. Like,
Way back we tried to keep it in sync, but since
wasn't
upstream,
happening.
real time was really just not, they had their own agenda. It just wasn't possible.
well, their patches don't come out in sync with the rest.
No, I know.
So does that bring up the point that we need to formally list the flavors that are supported in some way, so that it's really obvious if you're buying into a flavor that is not supported centrally?
You should just change that.
We had another spec yesterday where we talked about making sure we have granular support declarations, which will allow us to do that in a consistent way across all the package management tools. So if you want that, and you don't know how it works, and you don't understand when I send you email next week, come talk to me.
Sounds good to me.
So can you just rename the packages if you want?
Okay.
Broken.
We have the same one we discussed in the email. We want to be able to publish our own packages which are either late or on platform, and we need an easy way to
Right. So the thing is to document it for silicon vendors, for community members, for whoever to be able to participate in the kernel process with as little impact on your team as possible. Because your team is obviously going to want to know what's happening and be in communication with these people, which is good, but you don't necessarily want to, everything that they're doing has to go through you, because that's bad.
And more importantly, when people contact us, we want to vector them to the correct community for
Well, what it is that other people who are doing this, so say TI has a kernel that they maintain in Ubuntu, TI should be in the hash Ubuntu kernel channel and should respond when the users who are using their kernel come in and talk to stuff.
But we also need to know that.
You need to know it's them, and so we need to make this clear, but
we need to go, oh, that's TI.
we need to document this process so that it's accessible, so that TI knows they can come in and do that.
Agreed. I understand what you're saying.
So it sounds like we have a plan. Is there anything else we need to talk to here? If not, I think we'll declare that finished. Thank you very much, everyone.